So we might have some latecomers. We'll see what happens. So we always start the class with some prayers, and we'll do the prayers in English, so you know what we're saying. You have the sheet, right?
Yeah.
And you can just like hold your hands like this, or you can try to.
Ring finger straight, crisscross the pinky, and the forefinger around the middle.
Yeah. Hey, good. That's good.
Voila.
So what is this called?
I don't know.
Yeah, but hand position.
I can't remember what's called. Okay, here we go. Here's the great earth, filled with the smell of incense, covered with a blanket of flowers. The great mountain, the four continents, wearing a jewel of the sun and the moon. In my mind, I make them the paradise of Buddha, and offer it all to you. By this deed, may every living being experience the pure world. Ilam Guru Ratnam Mandalakam Yatiyam. I go for refuge to the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha until I achieve enlightenment. By the power of the goodness that I do, in giving and the rest, may I reach Buddhahood for the sake of every living being. I go for refuge to the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha until I achieve enlightenment. By the power of the goodness that I do, in giving and the rest, may I reach Buddhahood for the sake of every living being. I go for refuge to the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha until I achieve enlightenment. By the power of the goodness that I do, in giving and the rest, may I reach Buddhahood for the sake of every living being. Okay, so this is class 5 of a course named the Diamond Cutter Sutra, and it's based on the scripture. So every class we unpack a little bit of the scripture. So you're kind of dropping in right in the middle. So just don't worry about stuff not making sense. Like in time it will.
Thank you for allowing me to come in.
No, of course, everyone's welcome at any time, but just know that there will be stuff that you might go like, what the heck are you talking about? and even if you had come to every class, you might still do that.
So I'm okay with that.
So, all right. So here we go. The text where we are right now starts today. Where Lord Buddha asks Subhuti, like, if you would cover not just one planet, but he says a system, a great world system with 1,000 of 1,000 of 1,000 planets, and you fill them up with all 7 kinds of precious substances, which would be like gold, silver, emerald, stuff like that. Crystal, crimson pearl. If you would cover all these planets with all these precious substances, and you would offer that to someone, would you create mountains of merit by doing such a great deed? That's the question. And when you then read on, they start to explain what it is, these planets that they're talking about. I'll try to convey. So they use a different text called the Abhidharma Kosha, in which they explain all the planets and how the world comes to be and how it will die and what is all there. Talks about also about the bardos. Basically, yeah, how to measure time. I mean, this is stuff that I find that really difficult to understand because I don't have a math brain, and this is a little bit tricky, but they measure atomic levels where they start with a lice egg and they go smaller and smaller and smaller to like the dust of a sun ray, piece of dust on the sun rays, and then they divide that 100 times, and then they divide that another 1,000 times, and then they get down to the subatomic particles, and then they go backwards, and then they measure, like they go all the way up to the planet, and how big this is, the solar system, and the galaxy, and the universe. Which book is this one? Abhidharma Kosha. Yeah. So I think it'd be very interesting. So in there they explain all the planets and things. So in here they talk about the world system. So because it's mentioned in the text that we're covering today, we're just about these systems with 1,000 of 1,000 of 1,000 planets. So if we fill those up with all the precious stones, then so they say there's 3 world systems. The first one say Tong Chipu. Then there's Tong Burma. Tong Chenpo. And Tong Chipu, Tong means 1,000, but it's also the word for emptiness actually. But in this case it means 1,000. So the first system that they talk about is a world system that is made up of 1,000 inhabited planets. Then the second world system that they talk about is Tong Barma, and Tong means 1,000, and Barma means of the above systems, which refers to a system of 1 million inhabited planets. So when we talk about the first one, the world system made up of 1,000 inhabited planets, each planet is described with structure, certain beings, plant life. The Abhidharma Kosha is very specific. Like they say that all these planets have beings like us, like humans, animals. They have beings of all the six realms that we've spoken about. Right? So the first one is 1,000 of those inhabited planets. The second one is 1 million. And then the third one is 1 billion. So it's 1,000 of the Tong Barmas makes the Tong Chepo. So a universe made up of 1,000 galaxies, of 1,000 planets inhabited by people like you. Yeah. With the 6 forms of beings. So we can only see the 2. We can only see humans and animals, but then what other? Do you remember? We've spoken about what other beings are there. Hmm. Mm-hmm. What else?
A hungry ghost.
Yeah. What's the first one I mentioned?
Formless being.
Yeah, formless.
Or that's the third one.
Yeah, so we call them pleasure beings, right? People in the form realm. What else? The hungry ghost. True. Then what else?
Angels. Or the higher realms.
That would be the form realm.
Desire.
That's us. Yeah, we are humans living in a desire realm as well as the animals. So then what else is left is the hell beings. So we have hell beings, we have the hungry ghosts, we have animals, humans, pleasure beings, and almost pleasure beings. You can call them gods and demigods.
Can you slow that down for me?
Yes,
Hell, hungry ghosts, pleasure.
and almost pleasure, animals, humans.
Pleasure and almost pleasure are kind of like one type. So I might have 7, right?
Then it's 7. Yeah.
3, 4, 5, 6.
2, 3, 4, 5.
I have hell, hungry ghosts, pleasure, almost pleasure, animals, human.
And gods and demigods.
Oh, gods and demigods.
No,
Yeah,
those are pleasure and almost.
Oh, those are
Yeah,
part of
gods
pleasure.
and demigods. Yeah. So the almost pleasure, the demigods, they are supposedly really jealous beings because they're so close to the gods that they want to be the gods. You know, they're like, say you are working somewhere and you have the supervisor and you're just below the supervisor, you might feel very jealous of you also want to be the supervisor, right? So you can see it like that. And they get obsessed. Obsessed with jealousy. So if you took that many planets, and they're really referring to the last one, if you took that many planets and you covered them with all these substances, would it be a good virtue? That's the question. What do you think? Yeah. Yeah, it would be a good virtue. But then Lord Buddha says those mountains of jewels don't even exist. They don't exist from their own side. Yeah, they don't exist self-existently, right? And we've spoken about that. And then he talks about doing a good deed like that. Like, if you've done a good deed, the past is already gone. And the future hasn't come yet. So your good deeds and their future results don't exist. That's what he's saying. Because your good deeds that you've done, they're done. They're gone. And the results they're going to produce in the future, they don't exist yet. So they don't exist either. So they're saying, like at the time when the good deed exists, by definition of cause and effect, you can't have the result yet. Okay? They cannot both exist at the same time. The good deed that you're doing and the result it's going to reap. Okay? By the time your result appears, the cause is gone. When you have a seed in an oak tree, by the time the seed flops into the oak tree, the seed's gone. Okay? So then they say, oh, so there's no relation between karma and its consequences. No relation between karma and its consequences. When I heard that, I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. It's not what we've been studying like forever in these courses, that there is a relationship between karma and its consequence. But here they say there is not a relationship between karma and its consequence. If you have a relationship, they say, the two things that are related, they must exist. But they don't, right? If they're past, they don't exist anymore. If they're future, they don't exist yet. So how can there be a relationship? How can they be connected if one of them is gone and the other one's not come yet? So that's kind of tricky. But there is a difference between saying that they don't exist at the same time and that they don't exist at all. So in different schools of Buddhism, they differ on this point, right? They don't all agree, they have different ideas. Hi, Carol. So why are we saying this then? Like, I'm just gonna wait a second. Carol, we'll just wait for you to move on.
Sorry.
Because it's a little bit.
Does anybody want to read the Good to see you.
So those three systems,
Nice to see you.
those are just three, what type of systems? Just world systems?
Three world systems.
Three world systems.
Yeah. And the
Three
way that
sizes.
I could understand it is that, say, the Buddha is looking that way, and then he sees one system of, 1,000 inhabited planets, and he looks that way, and then he sees this system of 1 million. So separate systems. Yeah. Universe. It's really. And it's cool because, this is very old scriptures that they're talking about these types of things. And really one of the messages is that we're just a tiny part of this vast, we don't know. I mean, what they're claiming is that, there is millions of other planets just like ours with humans and all the other beings, right? So, there's a lot more out there than we think.
When I was little, I had very clear memories of another planet.
Yeah.
And people would ask me, where am I from? And I would say, I'm from such and such a planet. And they thought, anyway, in 2011, NASA discovered the planet. The exact planet that I said.
Really?
And you can go online and Google it, and there's a picture, and there's everything. And and to this day, I have relations on that planet that I speak to.
Really?
So, so they can't actually, I guess time and space aren't at the same, it's a continuum, so, they may not exist at this moment there, but they probably, they say that it was, like, humans inhabited it at one point. It's very similar to Earth, but it's actually called, it's a diamond planet.
Really?
And it's called the diamond.
Huh, that's really cool. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's great. So, Well, that helps, so I don't have to try to convince you that.
Not me.
Serena said.
But you know, in any case, you know, even if you wouldn't buy that, just the fact that you know there is more than what we know. I mean, it's so far away that we can. It will take a while for us to reach. You know, I think that there hasn't been much in the way of research that's been able to get outside of our solar system. But if they would, who knows what they would find. Anyways, so, all right. So the parts of time, what are the parts of time? Past, present, and future. So, time itself is empty. And it could not occur without your projections, okay, without your labels. So, Julie, I don't know if you're familiar with the term emptiness, but it's something that actually this whole sutra is about. Mm-hmm. And just in short, when I say the word empty, it means that something does not have an inherent nature. So when, you know, I have a cup here, to us it's a cup, but the cup is not like saying, hi, I'm a cup. Like we see it as a cup because we have that label in our mind that we're putting on. But if somebody would walk in this room who's never seen a cup, they would not see it as a cup. So, you know, like, I don't know, who would never seen a cup, like maybe a baby or someone from another planet or whatever, right? They would walk in here and they say, well, they see an object, to see an object with color. But for us, yeah, it's a cup. So just like that, with anything, with everything, the way that we see each other, the way that, you know, you see Hogan, like it's all based on your own projections. We all see different Hogan here. Yeah, so time is also empty like that. Time is dependent on your labels of time. And when I try to prove that to myself, I would think about, say, when you have a horrible day, it seems to never end. But if I'm having a great time, it ends so quickly, right? So it's empty. Like it's not. If it was self-existent, it would always be the same. It would feel long whenever I would have a good time, or if I would have a bad time. You know, it would always feel the same if it was fixed. But it's not fixed. It depends on my perception, on my projection of time. Right? Does that make sense? Yeah. Okay. So time can only occur because it's empty. If it wasn't empty, it couldn't change. Nothing could ever move. It would be fixed. It would be just always the same. Because it's empty, it can move as our projection. Right? Like right now, I'm having a really wacky concept of time because I've been on jet lag mode for 2 weeks now. So I have a very different experience of time than I normally have. I wake up at 1:30 in the night and I'm like, all right, let's start this day. You know, it's wacky. And my husband's snoring beside me, so he's not having the same perception. So time is I'm creating time. And the way I perceive it is unique to me. And the reason why we see anything as a cup or a experience time in such a way is because of our past deeds, is because of our karma. If my past deeds have been great, then I would have a positive experience. If I have done bad things, then that would translate in having a negative experience. So they say that one day on earth is 1,000 days in hell because of the karma difference. Hell beings experience time differently. So that makes sense to me because what I just said, like when I have a great day, it goes by so fast, but when I have a horrible time, it just lasts forever. So that's what they say, like 1,000 days in hell is one day on earth. So the hell beings take the same parts of time, but they just put a different label on it. And they have the sensation, the experience of time moving very slow, very slow. So different schools have different ideas on whether past and future exist. Okay. In a lower school, they say it does. Then when you get higher, they say it doesn't. And then when you hit the school where we're in right now, they say it does. Because it exists in the sense that it's affecting your life right now. If Yasmin's parents didn't decide to move to Canada, then her life would be much different, right? Something that happened in the past has changed your life. And I would not have met you, right? So thanks to the past, we see change. We're affected by it. So to get back to those mountains of merit, filling up all those planets with all the good deeds, some schools say don't exist. We can think about that and think, okay, they don't exist how we think it exists. But in fact, the mountains of gold that we fill on these planets exist as our projection. Like we can project it as happening, but it doesn't exist in an external fixed way, because again, the fact that I see gold doesn't mean it is gold. It's gold to me, but it's not gold to a baby, right? So all those substances are empty. I'm just labeling them as valuable, precious. So that's how everything exists ultimately.
So I have a question.
Yeah.
So do they also think that you can move back and forth down the continuum of time? So for instance, if past affects present, changing something in present could change the past and then finally catch up to you in the future.
I believe that that's true. I think that when you experience something a certain way, maybe in a negative way, then later, in a later present moment, you can look back at it and think, well, actually, that wasn't negative, that was a gift, that was beautiful, right? So in that sense, you are changing your past by changing your present. Yeah. Which also proves that it's empty, because if it wasn't empty, it would be negative for always. It could not change. But your mind, your experience can change. Your karma shifts, and all of a sudden you can see it as a blessing, where you maybe before thought you could never ever see that as something good. Right? So what else is part of this text is saying, okay, so if you offer all of this stuff out to somebody, all of these precious substances. Or you read one line of, or one verse of this scripture. Reading the scripture would be way more virtuous than covering millions of planets with precious substances. Why would you think that would be? Why would reading Dharma, reading about emptiness, about, tricky subject, why would that be more merit than offering all these beautiful things to someone?
Because you're moving on your path to enlightenment.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, because material things, they're not gonna. It's nothing compared to becoming enlightened.
But isn't the act of giving also a way to be on a path to enlightenment?
Absolutely, and we're going to talk about that in a second. Yeah. Good point. Yeah. They say that because the beings that have gone before us, that have reached enlightenment, they have understood this text. They have become enlightened, and you can do way more good if you are enlightened rather than, just giving gold away.
Well, and I think giving is different than offering. It seems like the gold is an offering, not a real.
So we'll talk about that in a second, about different ways of giving. Actually, let's talk about, say, Jimbapo, Jingayu, and Jimbajawa. So Jimba means the good deed. So let's take the first perfection. What's the first perfection, Yasmin?
To protect life?
No, perfection. 6 perfections. Remember? Just pony.
Sorry, I'm doing a blank.
No. The first perfection is giving. So we'll use that as an example. The first perfection is giving.
Kindness, patience,
Yeah.
joy, stillness, and wisdom.
Hey. That's very good.
Very serious.
Those are the 6 perfections, indeed. So we're going to get to those in a second, but I want to use the first one as an example
Kindness. I'll read it for you.
to point out the emptiness of the 3 spheres. And if you're keeping a 6 times book, this is a good one to use to apply the emptiness of the 3 spheres to any situation. So when you think about giving, let's see the elements of the deed while doing it. So we're giving. So we have Jimpapo, which is the giver. Then we have Jimpayo, the recipient, the receiver. Jimpajawa is the act of giving. So those are the 3 parts. That's the 3 spheres we call them. So each of them are empty. So the giver is empty. The receiver is empty. The act of giving is empty. So what does that mean? So when I give something to somebody, I can see the emptiness of myself.
The emptiness of yourself or the emptiness of the gift?
And the giver and the receiver. Yeah. So this is what powers things up like crazy. If you can understand that the three spheres, the giver, receiver, and the act. So the one doing the deed is empty. What does that mean? You're empty. How can you apply that to the act of giving?
But the only reason you're able to give is because of your past deeds.
Mm-hmm.
That's ripening in the present moment.
Mm-hmm. So the fact that how you see yourself in that moment as wishing to give something to somebody is only possible because you're projecting yourself that way in that moment, which is only possible because you're forced to feel that by your past karma. If you don't have the karma in place, you wouldn't be able to feel that you want to give something to somebody. Okay. Like your daughter. She did not feel like bringing some extra money to school to give to somebody. She just doesn't have the karma in that moment to feel that. Nothing wrong with that, it's fine. That's what she's forced to feel in that moment. Okay. So if you are forced to feel to want to give something, then that's your karma in that moment. You're forced to see yourself in that sense. So, but not just the whole fact, how you see yourself is completely empty. The way I see myself is so different than how Yasmin sees me. So I'm forced to see myself a certain way, which changes every day, or, every moment, really. I can go through, in one day, I can see myself a million different ways, right? And someone else looking at me will have a different experience and maybe like me one day and hate me the next. Who knows, right? And that's what they're forced to feel. So that is what I mean by the emptiness of the giver. You're empty. You're not fixed, because if I was fixed, I would see myself the same way all the time. And if Yasmin would look at me, she would also see me that way, because that's who I would be. But that's not how it works. It's not. It's always changing. And it's always dependent on your karma. So that's the giver. Then the receiver, same thing. I mean, they can only receive something if they have the karma to receive something. My brother, I was just in Holland a few days ago, and he really wanted to give me something. And he didn't. Somehow we didn't have the karma for him to complete his task, to buy me whatever he wanted to buy me and give it to me in time before I'd leave. Karma wasn't there. The intention was there, which, that's sweet. But it didn't happen because I didn't have the karma to receive, and he didn't have the karma to be able to actually give. Okay, so that's the emptiness of the receiver. The way the receiver sees themselves is completely empty, completely forced by their perceptions, by their karma. Okay? And the fact that they can receive, well, only because they have been generous in the past. And then the act of giving. Sometimes in the three spheres they would say the object, the gift itself, as the third one, but in this case we're saying not the object, but the act of giving. So the process of handing it, not the object that I'm giving. Okay. So it's empty too, like the whole way you see that. So when you can understand that, when you start to give things to people, that's when it becomes becomes powerful. Because that's when you start to understand that you are creating your own reality and that you can change your reality. How? How can you change your reality? If I'm forced to see myself this way, then how can I change my reality?
What's the question again?
Bring consciousness to it.
What did I ask?
Is it-
How, if I'm forced to see myself this way, then how can I change my reality?
Your present actions.
My present actions, yes, which ties into what you're saying. So I have a choice, right? I have a choice during the day, all the time, whether I want to do good things or bad things. I can maybe feel the urge to do something that's not so good, but then I have the choice to not act on it, but to do something good instead, which then will plant good virtue, which then will result into me having a positive experience in the future, right? So I can alter my reality by doing good deeds, by thinking nice thoughts about other people, by caring, by doing the 6 perfections. And creating, changing my reality is one thing. Like I can change my reality into more pleasant to make sure that I can put all the right deeds into place to see myself have enough money, to see myself have a nice relationship, to see myself have all the things that I want to have. Great, but I'm still gonna die. I'm still gonna get sick, old, and die. So can we go beyond that? Can we do the good deeds in order to become enlightened, to create the bodies of Buddha, to be able to help all beings? So that's the difference, right? I can do it just to have a nicer life, or I can do it because I want to help other people become happy. I think that's important to know. And what is it called when you want to do it for other people? What are you called?
Bodhicitta.
Yeah, you're a bodhisattva. You have bodhicitta. Because you have this deep wish that you want everybody around you to be happy. You're sick and tired of people in pain. And you know that just making a nicer life for yourself is not going to help those people that are in pain. So you want to help them. So when you understand emptiness, it would be actually foolish to do bad deeds. Because you know that they will always result in more suffering. So it's like being a smoker and you have the cigarette pack that says, it gives you lung cancer, and then you'll still smoke. Like, it's foolish. It doesn't make sense. Like, if you know something that's going to hurt you, why do it? So in the same way, you could say, if you understand that you're empty and that you have the power, because you are empty, to turn into an enlightened being, to turn into a being that's always happy and that only is concerned about other people and is in a constant state of bliss, then why do things that would hurt you and others? If you can true.
Then in the same way, though, they're forced to do that because of their karma.
Mm-hmm. It's true. So
unless they can step out of it.
Mm-hmm. You need to see that, for sure. It's true. Yeah. And in order to see that, you have to do good deeds, which will get you. Yeah. Okay. So those are the three spheres, the emptiness of the three spheres.
Yeah, and so in a way, if we still use that idea of the smoker and the package and what it has on it, so in a way, without practicing the six perfections, so without practicing the perfection of wisdom, they can't receive that wisdom from the package.
Yeah.
So they can't.
Yeah.
Right? So that's how it's all.
That's how you keep cycling in samsara, by not having wisdom and by thinking things the wrong way, like thinking that your partner can bring you happiness, by thinking that money comes from work, by thinking, stuff like that. I mean, we're hardwired to think that way. Go to work, get your paycheck. It's not how it works. It's not how it works. Why not? What's the proof of that? Why doesn't money come from work?
Because not everyone does the same work, gets the same money.
Yeah.
Or they lose it when they get it.
They lose it right away. Yeah.
It's all.
Sometimes money, I spend it all on the first day. Sometimes I have left over at the end of the month. Some people work really hard. They get very little money. Some people work really hard. They get a lot of money, Some people get paid very little, yet they have no trouble paying all their bills. Some people get paid a lot, and they have such trouble with paying their expenses. So when you are acting generous in your life, especially with emptiness in the back of your mind, it powers it up, and it will just return faster. Like, you'll have everything that you need by just being generous, by being kind to people. All those seeds that you plant will ripen into results, right? So the only reason why you think you're working so hard but you have no money is because you're acting stingy. I went out for dinner with a friend in Holland, and he didn't bring any money. And he's struggling for money, but that's fine. I paid. It didn't matter to me. But he said, yeah, I'll get some money from the cash machine after. And then he did, but he still didn't want to give me any money. So it's clear to me that that's why he doesn't have any money, because he wants to keep the little bit that he has, which is our instinct. That's what we do. We want to keep things. And we think by keeping them is how we keep it. But the opposite is true. By giving it away, we'll have everything we need. It's so opposite, and it's crazy, but this is how it works, and you should prove it to yourself over and over again by experimenting this in your life. It's very important. And
businesses have proven it with tithing.
Sorry?
I said businesses have done studies with tithing, giving a certain percentage. They have shown that their business actually increases.
Yeah.
Their revenue.
And that's how it works. That's how it works. But, the tricky part about it is that there's a time gap. So I can have my own business and say, okay, I'm just going to be super generous and I'm going to give whatever, a certain percentage away. But if I still have the seeds of being very stingy and not being generous, those have to ripen still. So that might ripen in a way if my business not succeeding. However, me giving away stuff will ripen later into feeling abundant or having a successful business or whatever, right? So you always have to remember the time gap. And the more wisdom you have, the shorter the time gap is. It's tricky. I think we need a cookie break.
I know for myself, it definitely your last course we were learning about
Do you want to hand it?
karma, and one of the ways to, if you give to holy beings, but if you give to your parents, it was kind of a surprise. That was new to me, that if you give to your parents, it really helps. And I think in one of the meditations was think about how your past has created your present. And when I came out here and I was just getting by, there was always that thought, oh, I'll wait till I earn more money before I do long-term loan. But I'm glad I didn't. Even though I was just scraping by, I gave her $50, and I'm okay. Thank you. Now that's really, now I'm abundant because I see that as being action. Like you said, it was very little, but it was a lot at that time, right? $50 when you were barely having enough to make it through the month is a lot. But then to see, these miracles happen.
It's cool, isn't it? And you can give very small things too, with the right motivation. And if you think about the emptiness of the act of the 3 spheres, right? Like if you can give small amounts to people and wish them abundance. Like when I go in the grocery store and I buy something, I wish the store prosperity. I wish the girl that's helping me abundance, like by giving her a few dollars for my groceries, whatever. Like you can do it in so many different ways. Yeah, you can totally give $50 to your parents, and that's amazing, But you can do it in smaller ways too. It's good to do it in such a way that it's a little bit uncomfortable, because otherwise you're not really going to grow, right? Most growth is in when you feel a little bit uncomfortable. That will open you just a little bit more.
Well, at Open Door is the same. We giving to our teachers. It was we kind of upped our giving, and each time it was like, oh, this is a lot, but then next year you'd see, oh, we did even better, and then it became easier to keep giving more.
Yeah.
And when people go, oh, why is Open Door where it is? And I think it is that act of giving that has given the karmic seeds to, obviously the past, but it's knowing how many other studios have closed down and whatever, it's just, it's not like we're extra special, but it's just that the act of giving has really helped.
Yeah.
And brought in a lot of,
Have you noticed the difference in studying Buddhism around?
I'm glad to say that we already had that habit before I came in, but to have Mariska come join Open Door was like a blessing. I kind of go, oh wow, Georgina, as some of you know, it was like, wow, to work with Mariska, we feel so blessed, and it's like, okay, well, I'm saying it's the good karma that she has done in actively giving, and to bring people, bring Mariska, bring the teachers we have to continue doing what they do. It couldn't be done on my shoulder, on her shoulder. It needed everybody to do this. And, then I'll bump into other business owners, and they'll go, oh, it's so hard to get people, and that there will be always different reasons on why things are not going well or doing well. And I can say, yes, I understand, but really that really isn't the reason.
Yeah, but you can't say that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's, I think, is an important thing to note. Like when people come to you and they complain about things that aren't working for them and give the reasons, that you should just keep quiet.
Yeah. that's what where they're at, and that's what they.
Because when you start to lecture people, it's not going to work. Like unless they want you to, unless they ask you. Like over time, people will say something's different about you. Like I can't put my finger quite on it, but what is it that you're doing that makes you act different in the world, or something like that? Then that's great. Then they're open and they want to know something, and then you can give them a little bit. But I was very excited when I first started to study this stuff, and I wanted to tell everybody, but that just backfired right away. Like you can't do that. And you can really mess people up too. Like you don't want to do it, so you have to be really careful too what you share.
But some people are open. Like I think if Yasmin was saying, "Oh, what's the difference?" I said, "Well, I've been explaining it to my kids." And my older son has definitely the karma to receive it, and he knows sometimes he gets hurt. It's like, oh, my bad karma. I remind him if he does things to the other brother. I said, you really shouldn't be doing that because it's going to come back to you. And, at the moment he does it, it's same as our impulse to do something. I get angry and I'm just like, you have to then remember it's going to come back. There was a quote in I think last week's homework, and it was saying how to not be angry is harder than 5 years in a cave.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was gonna say in a moment here. Yeah, if you are in that moment where someone's pushing you, they know exactly what to say to just set you up, right? To then not respond in kind, which is what your whole being is screaming to do, right? You want to give it back to them, but if you decide not to, that's just really hard to do. But if you don't,
really good though.
Sorry?
It feels really good to not respond that way. To be centered and be true to myself.
New Year's cookie.
Instead of falling into that cycle and that energy and those patterns.
Yeah.
And that's exactly it. If you want to get out of that cycle that you've been in for God knows how many years, eons, you have to do that. You have to, and it can be so hard. But if you can stay strong and not do it, then you're starting to create new patterns. And then actually you'll notice that, I haven't been angry for so long. I can't even remember last time I was angry. Over time, you're creating all these new grooves, and that's really nice. So,
well, I think it's not that we get angry, because, as humans, our emotions are messengers. They're wonderful. They're actually designed to move through in 90 seconds. That's it.
wow.
So the fact that we hold on
Mm-hmm.
and then we act out, that's the part. Not, I think, that you feel it. Because the feeling of anger is telling you that something is not working in your environment, and it's like, oh, I need to step back and see what that is. I think that's a very valuable piece. It's letting it last longer and letting it, and then the actions coming out of that. That's where the harm comes to yourself and to others. I don't think the emotion itself inherently.
I don't think so
Yeah,
either.
it's that reaction to it.
And in time, you start to see that that emotion is also empty. You're forced to label it as anger, but when your karma shifts, you start to have that same wind, that same energy, and you can label it as something pleasant. It's really cool too. But yeah, it's good to not act when you feel like it's justified or something,
It's actually good not to act when you have any emotion, even if it's happy. Because if it's an informing. It's like, oh, something in my environment is working really great, and then you again not act out of the emotion, but out of the consciousness of what you want to create at that moment. So it's not just, it's all of the emotions that are work the same way,
I think that's
right?
yeah.
Whereas these beautiful perfections are more state of beings. Like joy is not happiness. Joy is a state. Stillness is a state.
To not get attached to any of the emotions, I think is what you're saying, right?
Yeah.
To, if you know that every emotion that you feel is just simply a projection forced upon you, to feel it like that. So you don't need to grasp to it. You can just let it come, let it go, and it's always just changing. So the 6 perfections. So the first one, Hogan already said them so nicely. So we have giving, morality, patience, joyful effort, meditative concentration, and then wisdom.
So kindness is not one.
It's under morality.
Oh.
Yeah. So if you do these, we call them perfections. Actually, that's written right here. So in Sanskrit, it's paramita, and in Tibetan, it's parol tu chimpa. Say parol tu chimpa. And parol means the far side, and to chimpa is to gone. So it's like gone to the far side, which means like the ocean that you're trying to cross is samsara, which will lead you to nirvana, Buddhahood, right? So when you perfect all the perfections, you are enlightened. So the only being that has perfected these perfections is Buddha. So they will lead you to become a Buddha by doing these. And so you mentioned it earlier, like, should you be giving in order to move along on your path, right? You said something like that. Yeah, you totally should. So can you apply wisdom to all these perfections? Then you're just like a rocket, You'll move so quickly if you can understand the emptiness of the 3 spheres that we talked about, and you apply them to each of these. So, giving is not just like giving material things, but also giving protection, giving protection from fear, giving love, like that. And then morality is being kind. Of course, we have vowed morality too. If you're in a monastery, you can take all these sets of vows that you don't need to know them right now, but there's a whole bunch of them, not just for people in the monastery. You can also, a few of us here have taken bodhisattva vows. You can take those. So they say once you have taken a vow and then act, it becomes more powerful too, because you have vowed to do this. And it's not tried to restrict you, no, it's actually created to free you and to help you make your decisions and choose things that are beneficial to get you quicker to enlightenment. So then the third perfection is patience. And it's not really a good word in English word, because patience, we think about patient like when you're sitting in a doctor's office and waiting for a bus or something, but really what they mean is not getting angry, like you discussed before, in that heat of the moment, not to react. That would be patience. And yeah, one moment of that is more difficult than sitting in a cave and meditating for 5 years. Then joyful effort is defined as to enjoy doing good things without resistance or excuses, taking delight in doing virtue. Then we have meditative concentration is the next one. And then the last one is wisdom. So what would be the difference between any of these in their plain form and in their perfected form?
You are that all the time.
Plain form, I think that's being harder because you're learning how to be
Okay.
practice morality, and so you haven't perfected it. Like it takes how many thousands of hours to perfect something.
Yeah, okay, that's
Like to become a master.
okay, that's good. I think what I was trying to go for, but I like what you're saying, is like when you do a deed, like there's such a difference between giving a cookie and giving a cookie. You know, giving a cookie without any wisdom, or giving a cookie with wisdom. Wisdom being understanding that the three spheres, understanding the emptiness of the giver, the receiver, and the act of giving. So when you do it like that, you are moving towards perfecting them. So basically, they're not perfections yet until you have perfected them. And how do you perfect them? By applying wisdom. But how do you get to wisdom? You said it already, right? How do you get to wisdom is by doing all those 5 that come before, to do the good deeds. That will get you to wisdom. Like, I think I've said it already before in this course, but I strongly feel that for myself, I had to become a mom, have 3 births, have 3 years of breastfeeding, giving all of me up for these little people. To do so much virtue, I needed that because I guess I hadn't done enough prior to that, in order to see myself in front of a teacher that explains wisdom to me. I feel like I had to go through, really hard time of giving up all of me for years in order to receive a teaching on wisdom. And that's how I like to picture these perfections. 5 perfections to get you to the 6th one, to get you to understand the 6th one. And then if you understand wisdom, and then you start to implement them to the other 5, then they become more powerful, and then you're just on fire. And then you can move very quickly to become perfected.
Perhaps too, when they talk about imperfect perfection, perhaps it's like what we're doing is rehearsing. We're rehearsing how to behave, right?
It's true. Yeah.
We're doing not with perfect intention, not with perfect fortitude and intention. We haven't achieved that, but doing the best facsimile we can, because it's going to be, I've got too much of myself in there. Hey, I'm doing this. I know I'm doing this. I think it's not pure. It's not perfect, but I'm practicing. It's a start.
Yeah, so you can call them perfectionizers, right? Yeah. So I'm happy that you mentioned bodhicitta in there, because that's very important. They'll never be perfect if you don't do it for other people. If you don't have that wish in your heart, right, that you want to help other people. So they become perfect when you do that.
So So if you're doing all these good things, just thinking that eventually it's going to help you, and that's not the right
Well,
intention.
I think it's okay to practice. I think that doing good things, it can evolve. It can evolve into something where it becomes less attached to your sense of self.
It's true.
And because you'll see the results, and you'll see that's beyond yourself.
But I think also when you are doing things more out of a self-interest to get you to the place where you no longer have self-interest, where then you can start to help other people, right? It's not selfish. It's not wrong.
Yeah.
It is.
You have the goal and the intention, and you know where you're starting from. That's better work with what you got.
Yeah.
And
then over time, you'll start to get less and less attached to your own little poor me.
Yeah.
Yeah, and hopefully you'll start to think bigger, about the people around you and wanting to help them. Yeah. So Lord Buddha did say that if they're not done with wisdom, they don't deserve the name perfections. But like we just discussed, you need to do them without wisdom in order to get to the point of wisdom, to then incorporate wisdom in all of your actions, right?
I think it could be a sort of wisdom to be aware. The awareness of where you are is a wisdom, right? Perhaps awareness of one's imperfection could be a sort of not perfect wisdom. Once again, it's imperfect. Well, it's awareness, self-awareness of why you're doing it.
Mm-hmm.
It's sort of wisdom.
So, yeah, he's saying it's just very important to have wisdom. I think I covered most of the things here. The only thing that I wanted to say. So if you are a bodhisattva, if you have had the experience of seeing emptiness directly, if you have love in your heart for all beings for real, then every act that you do is so powerful that even like feeding stale breadcrumb to a bird is like 10,000 times more powerful than a normal being doing any kind of action. But in order to become a being like that, you have to use those 6 perfections and do good all the time and think about wisdom, contemplate a lot. Apply it every time to all your afflictions, all your stories that come up in your mind, and just know that you have created all of them. You don't have to buy into all your stories so much, Loosen the grip of all the things you want or not want. And study and meditate. I'm just going to have a look at the homework questions to see if I've covered everything. Okay, I think I covered everything. I hope that wasn't too crazy for you.
Oh, no, not at all.
You seem to be.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it resonates with me. I understand what you're talking about.
I can tell that.
Yeah.
That's great. Yeah, you never know. It's good. Any questions? Then we'll close up by doing prayers.
Is that the dedication of the goodness of the being?
Yeah, but we first do the offering of the mandala again, and then we do the dedication. So we'll do them in English again. Here is the great earth, filled with the smell of incense, covered with blanket flowers. The great mountain, the four continents, wearing a jewel of the sun and moon. In my mind, I make them the paradise of Buddha and offer it unto you. By this deed, may every living being experience the pure world. Idam Guru. By the goodness of what I have just done, may all beings complete the collection of merit and wisdom, and thus gain the two ultimate bodies that merit and wisdom.